and welcome to Wax and Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host Mainz, and my colleague trying to work out if he'd be the doctor or the nurse in this combo. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Damn it, Jim, I'm an idiot, not a doctor.
So you'd be the nurse?
Probably.
Do you think you've got better legs than me? I've just been told mine are pasty and white and full of ginger hairs.
Well, I'm not going to accuse anyone of being a liar after that statement.
No,
Alabaster boy.
Alabaster, yeah. That's a good call. Good call, Dutton, good call. If people are wondering why me and Neil are talking about doctors and nurses, we may have had an incident on Saturday, Neil, is that correct?
Yes, we may have, yeah.
Well, I may have asked your daughter to run off a dislocated knee.
Yes.
Not my best move.
After she was pushed off a trampoline by an unknown assailant.
An unknown assailant who Zoe tried to describe, but we can't get into that for legal reasons.
Yeah,
as
racial profiling.
Police investigations are still ongoing, and there was some racial profiling involved. What happened was we had all the kids, with the exception of Alf, my eldest, a play place in Liverpool. Zoe and James were merrily playing. My son Max was eating Dutton's hat, and Amy was fast asleep.
Bless her.
5 minutes later, a lady comes back carrying Zoe who's in tears. We think, she'll probably just shake it off like the pros do in the footy. She doesn't. Dutton decides to go. Dutton does go. Goes to the hospital, and she's dislocated her knee.
Just one bone.
Just the one bone, yeah. In my defence of the shake it off situation, I have known Neil for 15 years, and Neil has had at least 4 heart attacks, possibly 3 broken legs, and at least 3 major injuries that he was able to run off 20 minutes later.
Well, my daughter is not quite the hero I am.
Yeah, let's say that you're the hero and you're just impervious to pain, yeah, and she just isn't.
Not yet. She will learn.
She will learn. For those who really want to know, she is okay. She is in plaster, but hopefully should be out of plaster this week. Maybe, unfortunately, we'll be in fiberglass going forward, but we will keep everyone updated.
Yeah, I mean, the prophecy does speak of one who will bring balance to the force. It might be her, it might be her sister, I don't know yet.
And if she's bringing balance, is she just going to do it on like one foot with her arms hanging out?
I don't know, doctor, please continue.
Okay. Busy show this week. We are going to go through the world of the internet to find some of the greatest stories the internet has to offer, and by Jove have we got some this week. And then also we're going to talk sport, but we're not going to talk the regular sport. We talk about American football. We're going to talk about cricket. We're going to talk about the World 2020 with former T20 domestic winner, Mr. Charles Dagnall, who's going to join us not talking about NFL. There's going to be 3 people who regularly talk about NFL, talking about cricket.
Yep.
It's going to be excellent.
This bow has so many strings.
We are basically a bow with many strings.
I think Shakespeare couldn't have put that better.
I don't think he could have either.
Bumbling idiot.
Thank you. Done. Let's just get on with what I want to be just weird America, but let's be brutally honest, it's just weird world this week.
Couldn't be weirder.
Story number 1, Dutton. I'm just gonna it's Florida, so I thought we'd start at the top where you should always start, which is in Florida. Here's the title: Man took backhoe joyride on Florida's 7-mile bridge. For those who are unsure, Google backhoe, but be careful what you write, because it may not get through your safety search.
Don't do it at work.
That's not suitable for work, that search. A backhoe is also called a rear actor or back actor, and is a piece of excavating equipment or digger. So basically this dude's got a big effing digger on the back of his tractor, right? Officials say 59-year-old man took a backhoe on a joyride across the famous 7-mile bridge in the Florida Keys, dumping boulders onto the road along the way. Monroe County Sheriff spokesman Becky Herron says in a news release that Carl Blahnik damaged the road and the sides of the bridge early Tuesday while recklessly driving along it for 90 minutes. She says deputies following him reversed direction several times to keep from being hit by the backhoe, but eventually left the bridge for safety. She says that Blahnik left the bridge, hit the spikes the deputies placed on the road. He faces charges and was taken to hospital for treatment. Heron doesn't say whether he has a lawyer. I hope he does. Traffic was allowed back on the bridge at 3 a.m. John, what is the strangest thing you've ever driven?
People to drink. It's not a backhoe.
That is amazing. Just imagine he's just... Because let's be honest, the guy's drunk, right? Because otherwise it's less funny. So let's just suggest he's drunk. And he's decided, you know what, I'm just going to take the tractor out. Do you know what, I'll attach the backhoe on, let's do this.
Yeah, he's in for a penny.
And he's like driving, and he's like, oh, you know what, makes a funny noise if I keep the backhoe on the deck. Oh, look, I can pick this boulder up and put it in the middle of the road. Yeah, you're drunk. You're from Florida, we love you.
Essentially, he was playing the second level of Manic Miner.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm going to say yeah.
It's a very old computer game.
Next story, Dutton. It's still in the United States of America, as it should be. This one's Georgia, which is a state next to Florida, so you can see there's probably some cross-contamination.
Do you have midnight trains?
It's from Huffington Post, which has its own section called HuffPost Weird News. I recommend it as a favourite for everyone's account, because it's awesome. And here's the title, Dutton. Frustrated man drives truck through own house. A Georgian man said he was so angry after a phone call with his wife that he drove his truck through his house. John Paul Jones Jr., great name by the way,
JPJJ,
35 of Sonoa, Georgia, says he fully intended to drive his truck from... Let me say that again. Says he fully intended to drive his truck from the backyard to the front yard by way of the living room on Thursday.
Well, you know, we've all tried to follow maps we've drawn up or taken from Google Maps ridiculously literally, and you know, it's one of those. It said turn right, so he turned right. It meant the next right, but he literally just, where he was, just turned right and went through his living room.
It's just amazing. So let's carry on. Okay. The Newman Times Herald reported that Jones told authorities that he'd been frustrated because he hadn't been able to sell his home. But Jones told WGCL, I assume that's the local TV network, that the incident was just one of those spur-of-the-moment crazy things you do. Dutton, what is the most spur-of-the-moment crazy thing you've ever done?
I once punched a door and broke my little finger. The ironic thing was I was punching the door because I was angry about being injured. And
I'm trying to think what I've done. I've threw golf clubs and broken them. I threw it out a bag and broken a bag. I threw a tennis racket at my mum once. There was a fence in the way. It would have hit her straight in the head though. But Dutton, that ball was clearly out, and for her to rule against their only son was unacceptable behaviour as far as I was concerned.
How big of you to admit this?
Thanks. I'm just going to tell you the last bit, right? Jones, who works as a contractor, did his own repairs. He appeared in good spirits when WGCL interviewed him on Sunday. I've been out of work the past year and a half, so I needed some work to do. It didn't pay anything, but hey, it kept me busy.
Yeah, there are many ways you could keep busy without demolishing your own house, I find, especially when you're not going to get paid to fix it. And also now, who's going to buy this reconstituted pile of rubble when they know... Put it this way, I'd be worried that there's nuclear waste or something in the basement if this prat has been living there.
It's not pretty, Dutton. Let's not beat it down a bush.
You could have alligators, weapons of mass destruction, covert terrorist cells. You can have absolutely anything. He worries me.
And speaking of beating around the bush, takes me to naij.com. Never heard of it, but it looks amazing. With the headline, "Pregnant woman claims she was raped by a pig." Let me. Surprisingly, Angie Houston recently told Ellis County News that she is expecting a baby pig as her first child. Houston alleges that one night she came home from a night of playing miniature golf. Don't know why the miniature golf is relevant to the story, but anyway, and was pounced on and raped by a 400-pound boar named Pete.
Now,
I don't know why it's called Pete either.
Yeah, I'm just going to do some speculation. Is there someone on the surrounding area of this lady's house called Pete? Maybe it's who the pig's named after.
Kate found this story and it's truly epic. Let's see what Angie has to say about the situation, shall we, Neil? People think I'm crazy and need mental help because of my story. No shit, Angie. No shit. They ask how the pig would get. Sorry.
No, that's not what they ask at all.
Sorry, you get they ask how the pig would get my panties off to mount me. I wasn't wearing any panties, Angie said. This is how. This pig has been hot for me for years. Don't know, I've got a picture of her right. She looks like a moose, never mind a pig. Constantly sniffing at my genitals. Like, how close you getting to this pig? You've been flirting with this pig, you dirty, dirty whore.
Yeah, you were asking for it.
Okay. This is amazing. Angie's father, Don Houston, who supports her claim, shockingly enough. Angie knows she can't have sex until she's married, and she promises she hasn't. Well, she obviously has with a pig. Pete's always been an ornery pig, so it's not surprising he raped our daughter. Yeah, okay, mate. Great story. After the incident, I butchered Pete out. The bacon I made from him is helping feed Angela and her baby. After all, she's eaten for 2 now and needs a lot of extra meat.
So
she's eating her son's dad right now with fries.
Yeah. Outrageous horse shit is my first thought.
This one will have to go explicit because there was no way that I couldn't swear. Speaking of brilliant stories involving animals, brings me to a news article from the Virginian Pilot, but actually comes from London, with what can only be described, Neil, as the greatest headline I have ever seen in my entire life.
See, there's two headlines serve two purposes. One is to get your attention so you want to read the story, or two, the headline will tell you absolutely everything you need to know so you don't need to read the story. I think this one falls in the latter.
Meerkat expert cleared of assaulting monkey handler in love spat over llama keeper.
What more do you need to know?
Let me say that again for people who are still laughing after the sex with pig story. Meerkat expert cleared of assaulting monkey handler in love spat over llama keeper.
Just brilliant.
I'm not sure we need to read the story because it's not as funny as the title. But it just says, a former meerkat expert at London Zoo was cleared Tuesday of assaulting a monkey handler in a love spat over a llama keeper. Just truly one of the best headlines ever.
Absolutely.
Dutton. And finally, our favourite story, and we'll ask a question, and we'll probably ask Charles this as well. Here's the headline from The Comeback, although this can also be found in the London Evening Standard, proving that either London is getting weird or people from Florida are moving house. Man who legally changes his name to Bacon Double Cheeseburger. I've got no regrets at all.
Well, why would you?
A British man has successfully changed his name to Bacon Double Cheeseburger, and the story behind the decision is amazing. Well, I'd hope so, because he's called Bacon Double Cheeseburger.
Yeah.
He did the proper things. Let's see what Mr. Cheeseburger's got to say for himself, right, Dutton? What people call me, it's up to them, but that's my legal name speaking now. My mum was furious, but my dad thinks it's hilarious. He was more than happy to use my new name. Of course he was. That's what dads do.
I can think of several names I'd like to call you, mate.
His fiancée doesn't seem to find the name change nearly as funny. My fiancée is fairly reluctant about marrying a cheeseburger. Marrying a cheeseburger. That's something we're discussing a lot. No girl ever dreams of spending her big day marrying a man called Bacon.
It's, as I say, imagine, you're in hospital, you're lying on the gate, you're about to have a very important, serious operation, and a man comes up to you and says, "Hello, I'll be carrying out your surgery today. My name's Dr. Bacon double cheeseburger. No, I'll take my chances without the surgery, Doc. I'm good."
So the only question I have, Dutton, if you could be named a food, what would you call yourself?
Pringles and Dr. Pepper.
So would you be Dr. Pringles Pepper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Pepper Pringle.
Dr. Pepper Pringles. So I'm going to just be Mr. Fillet Tower Burger. Other KFC burgers are available, but I'm not.
All the fast food restaurants.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Just KFC, because I want to be sponsored by them. So I just want KFC. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So they're the stories of the week that tickled our fancy. If you've got any that you want to send to us, send them over to @waxing_lyrical. Copy me and Dutton in. Dutton's at ndutton13. I'm Mainzy7. We just like laughing. So any story that you see that you think's hilarious and you want us to talk about on the show, just send it over.
Absolutely.
Well, Dutton, without further ado, let's get on to Mr. Dagnall and talk about the World T20. And joining us now on Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutts, it's a privilege to have Mr. Charles Dagnall. Not here talking about the NFL for a change, but he's going to talk to us about the World T20. Is actual, I suppose, your full-time proper job, would we say, Charles, is that correct?
Full-time proper job. People laugh at that when you say, "What's your job?" They go, "Oh, I go around the world commentating on cricket." Yeah, like that's a job. But yes, full-time proper job instead of talking utter guff on the NFL and usually predicting things that are wrong. Although one thing that I would never have predicted is the fact that Washington would have got to the playoffs and Philadelphia would have just been as horrific as they were. So anyway, they're your two teams. My teams, let's just move on from there. We're a work in progress and have been for the last 2 decades.
Yeah, work in progress since 2001. So Charles, straight onto it. People aware of your work on BBC Radio, doing a lot of the show. Some may remember you as a cricketer. Some may not remember you as the first change for the 2004 Leicestershire side that won the 2004 T20. My question is, how different is the game you will be commentating on compared to how it was when you were first changed in 2004?
Well, do you know what? You ask a very, very good question. I can guarantee you that, and it's nice that you did bring up my sort of credentials and qualifications, because the main thing about that 2004 T20, I was staggered, genuinely staggered that I wasn't in the running for the man of the match in the final. My 1 for 36 off 4 overs must have been up there. And getting dispatched for 2 enormous sixes by Alistair Brown of Surrey into the Hollies stand. That was a real sort of shining moment in my career. But the game has changed like you wouldn't believe. When we started in 2003, it genuinely was hit and giggle. It was something new. It was exciting. We actually played in front of crowds. That was something relatively known to county players at that time. You got a better crowd for a one-day game, an at-West game or something like that. But this was, you couldn't move for people. So obviously we knew that this was something different, that it had captured the public's imagination. I will tell you now, if I took my 2004 self and played right now, I would go miles. It's just a different game. Now, I know that you'd adapt to the game as it sort of goes through the decade, or, what's it been going, 13 years now. But the game has changed to such a degree. But genuinely, at Leicestershire, we weren't a very good side in one-day cricket and in four-day cricket. But we thought, well, let's give this a go and create our own tactics. We actually came up with tactics. A lot of people weren't taking it seriously. But, if for argument's sake, we had fielders on the one instead of on the 30-yard circle, giving them one. And so we played with lots of spinners. Not many people thought, people thought the spinners were going to go the distance, but we played with three of them: Brad Hodge, Jeremy Snake, Clive Henderson. And we had two opening bowlers who did very well, in a guy called Mark Cleary from South Australia, Otis Gibson, and me bowling first change. And and this still remains true today. The reason why I had a small amount of success is because with the white ball, I nipped it back in. And that still remains true today. To a right-handed batsman, the ball coming back into a right-hander is arguably one of the most difficult deliveries to play. Rather than someone bowling classic away swing, where a batsman can free their arms and actually hit through inside out over the top. So from the game then, fielding standards, slower balls, the bowlers have got so much more skillful. They've had to, because batsmen have got stronger. You should see practice. I watch the England team practice, and it's completely different. If you were trying to hit the ball out of the net in practice when we were playing, then you would have got a rollicking from the coaches. Now they practice hitting the ball out of the ground for hours on end. Bowlers bowling different variations, bowling wide of the crease, slower balls, back of the hand, front of the hand, knuckle balls, slow ball bouncers, Yorkers, you name it, wide Yorkers. They've got so many skills now, and they've got to, because the game has advanced to that much of a degree. And I think, and we've seen it go into different formats of cricket. You look at Test cricket now, and the way that Brendan McCullum played the other day, he scored the fastest century in history. And it's only because of T20 cricket. They are stronger, they're more powerful, they've got quicker hands, and the game has just changed so dramatically over a very, very short space of time.
Is it? I mean, as you say, with the various changes, and it's noticeable with one of the current England players, i.e. Mr. Hales, the ball that nips back in because he likes to step a leg, open up his offside.
Yeah.
So he can be quite susceptible to that. Instead of moving away from him, he's just going to swing at it. With these tree trunks they have instead of cricket bats nowadays. Is it harder, do you think, for I'm trying to be polite, a correct player to adapt to play 2020, or maybe someone who's come up through playing T20 to adapt to play the longer form?
It's a really good question, Dutz. Here's the thing. Alex Hales, and it's a really good example that you give, because he would be, theoretically, a very technically correct player. But what he does is his timing is such, and his placement is such, and as you mentioned the bat, now the bat, believe it or not, and there was a brilliant article, and Dutz, you'll have seen it on social media today, no doubt, that Mike Selvey has written in The Guardian about T20 and his sort of view on it, from being one of a sceptical view to one that really believes that it is the only thing that will actually cause cricket to survive in the future, and that's Test cricket. And Chris Gayle. Now, you look at the size of Chris Gale's bat, and they are enormous. I've picked one up, and it is ridiculous, the size of it. But it's light. It's £2.13. Now, Graham Gooch used to use a 3.5-pound cricket bat. This is a £2.13 wand with so much wood in it that it just pings off. Now, pro batsmen now go through bats like that, 5, 6, 7 a year, no doubt, because of the way that they're made and the amount of balls and how hard they hit them. Let's remember, it's a natural substance, is wood. So they are susceptible to breaking. But they are now so strong, and I think a technically correct player still has a role at the top of the order. Fields are in, you've only got two fielders outside the circle. So if you can pierce gaps, you don't have to necessarily, as we used to call them, the pinch hitter in one-day cricket. You don't have to go out slogging. You've just got to be able to pick gaps. And the timing of these guys is so good that if you're able to do that, then you're going to get rewarded for it. And I think that's where Alex Hales has been successful. Hales got 80-odd against Warwickshire in the opening match of the T20 last year at Trent Bridge, and I was there for it. And not once did he slog. He hit beautifully over the top. He whipped the ball fantastically off the legs, but the timing was so good. And these guys, the ball is coming down quickly. Their timing is that good. It's just there's no cricket ground big enough in the world to cope with them. So I do believe that when you then move into the realms of Test cricket, is it easier to go from one to the other? I think it's a lot easier to go from T20 to Test cricket because that's the way the game is moving now. No longer do we see the days, save for the tour that I did in the United Arab Emirates, where your average sort of 2.5 to 3 runs and over in Test cricket was the norm. Slowish wickets, slow outfields, and so that now you're talking that maybe 4 to 4.5 runs and over is actual norm for Test cricket. So I think that's the way it's going, and I think that you've of course got to have the correct technique with red ball cricket. However, I think it's easier to go from T20 to Test than Test to T20, and I think that's when. But all of these youngsters now, they are learning the skills required, the lap sweeps and the little fidgety shots that you see Root and Butler play and James Taylor and people like that. They're learning those at 15, 16, 17 years old, rather than we were doing it in the middle of our careers. These are something that they're growing up with now. So that's where my view sort of sits on that.
Once a player, I mean, you talk about Hales, he started the season playing for Notts against Warwickshire. I think he played that game, and then he went off to play in another T20 tournament somewhere.
He did, he went to the RPL, yeah.
That was it, yeah. Do England players, once they get into the international team, I think not something at a disadvantage, considering they don't go back and play in the T20s, for their county, and then they probably have 2 or 3 T20s, in a year, and then they're expected to play in a tournament. Whereas the Indians, the South Africans, the Australians, they're playing in the IPL and the Ram Slam and things like that.
It's, again, a really good point. And this has been a bone of contention for quite some time. But when you take, and this is where the introduction of Trevor Bayliss and Paul Farbrace at the end of last year's World Cup, when you look at where England were in one-day cricket and you look at where they are now, it is just a culture shift of gargantuan proportions. Now, what you also have, or you had a lot of the Test players playing in that 50-over side and the 20-over side as well, the Broads and the Andersons and stuff. Now what you have is a very distinct T20 squad and one-day squad and a Test side. And I think that the overlap is minimal. Joe Root is one, Alex Hales now is another, but I think they are able to adapt their games to the 50-over format. But when you look at the squad selected, there's not many who actually play in both, and I think that's a good thing. So your Owen Morgans, if he's playing for England in 50-over cricket, I've got no problems with that because 50-over cricket is now becoming more like T20 anyway. And England have actually cottoned on to that in the fact that they used to play it like a shorter form Test. Now every other country, 3 or 4 years ahead, was playing 50-over cricket like an extended 2020. So I've no problems with them playing for England in one-day tournaments, missing out on their own domestic tournaments. What I do have a problem with, or now what fortunately England have opened our eyes, we have seen Adil Rashid, David Willey go over to the Big Bash League and perform really, really well. Stephen Parry was there last year for the Brisbane Heat. He's not in the England World T20 side. Don't get me started on that. But but now they're allowing lots of them to go and experience other Ravi Bopara. And again, I know he's not in the England T20, but they're open to their players. Josh Butler has been talked about going to the IPL. Owen Morgan already done it. And so as long as they're playing the format at the top level or the top domestic level that they can, whether it be England or India, I don't really mind, if I'm being brutally honest, where they're playing it as long as they're playing the format. The Indian Premier League is still, I still think the best competition is the Big Bash League. I think it's got absolutely everything. As a tournament that a tournament should have. But the best players in the world are all playing in the Indian Premier League. You can't go over there and not learn stuff and become a better player. So now England are more open to it, and I think Andrew Strauss has sort of he's warmed to the idea. I spoke to him about it over in the UAE, and they've relaxed their stance hugely. And other people, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, suggested that was going to be the case, or should have been the case a couple of years back. England are still playing catch-up, but now at least they're open to their players going and playing in other tournaments, and that is a bonus, because you're only going to get better because of it.
So Charles, you're obviously going to India for the tournament, but from an outsider, it seems to have been, what's the best way to describe this, not the most well-organised tournament in the history of tournaments.
Mainzy, you're talking about the word shambles.
That's the word I'm looking for, I think.
Yes, there you go. Absolute shambles.
Who is to blame for that? Is it BCCI, ICC, both?
Oh, pick a number. Well, I mean, look, when you get the two of them involved in anything, then one thing that has always been in the World T20, and it's always been a really, really good tournament, the reason is they do it simply. Last time we were over in Bangladesh, they had two venues, Dhaka and Chittagong. And all of the games were played either in the afternoon or the evening at the one venue. So you had one group over in Chittagong, one group over in Dhaka, and then the semi-finals and finals were played in Dhaka. It was simple. Everything was so simple. Similarly, three venues, I think it was, for the World T20 in the West Indies and previous events. It has been a small, compact, great tournament. Well, India get involved, of course, and they want to spread it to the masses. And look, they do have commitments to fulfill, broadcasters, and they want to try. India is crazed on cricket, and they want to try and take it to as many people as possible. And I understand that, I do. However, it's really not feasible for a 3-week tournament. They're using 8 venues. Now, this is incredibly tough, and especially when some of them have got, you got worries over the standards of their structures and the rest of it. I mean, we complain in the media. We were there because, I know people had no sympathy for us whatsoever, but just sort of take a step into our book in that, about 100 days from a tournament, we didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what to book airlines and to set up broadcast facilities and to know where we're going. We had no clues about what the schedule was going to be. And I think it was about 2 months before the tournament when the fixtures came out. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that is craziness. If you're supporters that want to travel over, tickets were made to go on sale. Do you know when? Today. They went on sale today. We are 2 weeks from the tournament. And they're doing about this lottery. They're doing a lottery for online ticket sales and the like. And if you had plans to go over, or if you wanted to go and catch a world competition, they've just made it impossible for travelling fans. Now, look, the most likely is that the tickets will still get snapped up because of the country India is and how crazy they are about cricket. Not the point, really. We didn't know that Delhi was going to be available as a venue because of the standard of the stands. We didn't know if they were going to be safe enough. And when you're doing that, and also the security concerns over the Pakistan side. Now, I'm a bit old school in that, if Pakistan were told that they couldn't go by their government, I'm sorry, in my opinion, you can't hold a world tournament with someone being worried about their own security and not having to go. You've got to move it. So anyway, as it stands, everything seems to be on schedule now, and they seem to have got it sorted. But it has been shambolic from both. If the ICC is to blame or the BCCI is to blame, it's one of those two mainly because it's no one else. So the fingers have to be pointed somewhere. But, do they care? We'll wait and see. But I don't think it shines a great light on them, to be perfectly honest.
So regarding on the field, you talked about the new aggressive approach that England now have towards T20 and one-day cricket. Do they now have a chance? Bear in mind they've lost the last 5 limited over games, almost cavalier fashion. In your opinion, have they got a chance to win this? And if not England, who will?
England have got a chance to win it, because if they were playing the cricket that they used to play, they would have had no chance. At least they're playing. And at the moment, and people really, for me, have to get this into their head, they are behind. You just can't catch up in a year. You just can't do it. They have been playing this form of cricket for less than a year. When Barbrace came in, and you'll remember the one-day tournaments, the World Cup and the post-World Cup, and that was just a horrific one-day tournament. And that was 50-over cricket. Then they played against, was it Sri Lanka at Edgbaston, and got 400. And everyone went, cool, that's quite good. We'll go out and smash it. And that's what they've done. And they've played with a freedom. And now that is not going to, tactically, that's going to get you so far. However, you've got to also apply just a little bit of brain. That just doesn't come in 8-9 months. They have the players to win it. They have match winners. And in T20 cricket, it's one guy. One guy can win or lose you a game. And I look at the England squad now, and again, I mentioned Stephen Parry and Liam Dawson. Don't get me wrong, Liam Dawson's a good cricketer from Hampshire. It's a little bit, they rate him highly, and he's been performing well for the Lions. But how you can't pick Stephen Parry, who was a linchpin to Lancashire's success, has had experience over in Brisbane, played in the World T20 in Bangladesh, albeit his first tournament. How you can't pick him, I am staggered by that. However, their bowling seems to be good. David Willey makes things happen. If the ball swings, he's always dangerous. Reece Topley has done okay. Having Stephen Finn back will help. And Ben Stokes is now world class. He is world class. But you look at the batting lineup, Dutts, and the players. Morgan, for me, is still one of the best in the world. People sort of have a go at him about his fault. He is still world class. Morgan, Billings, Hales, Roy, Butler, Joe Root, Ben Stokes, James Vince. That is a strong batting lineup. Then you've got players like David Willey and Adil Rashid down the order. That's a very strong-looking unit. They're brilliant in the field. I think their bowling is lacking fractionally, and in India, that might be a little bit of a concern. But do they have a legitimate chance to win it? Yes, they do. I still think we have our favourites. Those who have played Indian Premier League, there's a lot of them from South Africa, there's a lot from Australia, and then you've got the subcontinent teams, which will do well on those kind of decks anyway. This is why I'm really excited about this tournament, more than I have been for any other. Because the standard of 2020 cricket now is such, and you mentioned those leagues around the world, that everybody is playing in. I was looking at the West Indies side. Now, Darren Sammy, Dwayne Bravo, Chris Gale, Jason Holder, Sunil Narine, Kieran Pollard, Andre Russell, Marlon Samuels, these are very, very good players. They have a chance of winning it. If, of course, everything is, their mind is actually on the game. You look at South Africa, David Miller and A.B. de Villiers, they can win you a game in the snap of an eyelid. It really is, I think, the most highly anticipated T20 World Cup I've seen for quite some time, in its entire history. I think the standard of the sort of, I would say, and excuse me for saying this, but sort of westernized nations, if you know what I mean. So rather than the subcontinent nations, I think they have got to a standard where they can compete legitimately with the subcontinent in the subcontinent. So it's a very difficult one to pick. I mean, it's an easy one if you want to say, well, India, because they're very good and they're in their home country. But I think there could be one or two surprises. And I also think, the preliminary round, there are some good sides in that as well. When you look at the first phase, Will Ireland have got a very strong chance. They've got some excellent players within their ranks. I think, I'm just looking at Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, even Hong Kong have been doing well. Now, I don't think Hong Kong would cause a problem to the major countries, but whoever does qualify from the prelims, I think could actually give anyone a game. And in T20 cricket, and I often equate it to this, it's a footballing analogy. And if Manchester United, maybe it's not a great example, let's use Barcelona. Barcelona are playing against Forfar, and over 90 minutes, Barcelona would absolutely destroy them. Over 45 minutes, they'd probably win 3-0. Over 20 minutes, do you think Forfar could probably bust a gut and hold out? They possibly could. So my point is that when you condense the game, the standards become a lot closer. And it only takes one bit of something to win a game of T20. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this. And I think I would say it's a pick'em tournament. India you'd go for just being the home nation, but I think there are one of 5 or 6 who have a legitimate shot.
Final question, Charles. How can we listen to you throughout the tournament?
How can you listen to us?
Yes.
Oh, easy. You can listen to us, of course, on... is this my plugging bit?
This is your plugging bit, yeah.
This is my plugging bit. I've got to go into presenter mode here. Well, of course, you can listen to us on 5 Live Sports Extra, on digital, on online, and also on your digital television. All the games, we'll be covering the majority of games because of the logistics. I don't think we're going to be able to cover all of the games, but pretty much we're going to do our best to cover as many games as we possibly can. And don't forget, we'll also be covering the Women's World T20 as well, which is running concurrently, so we're going to be covering a lot of that as well. And England, just on that point, England really do need to perform because a lot of countries, as we've just seen over in South Africa, a lot of countries have caught up to them too. So this is going to be quite a sort of acid test for Charlotte Edwards and the troops. So the women's games running concurrently with the men's, and you can also catch us via the BBC Sports app and just click on the cricket section, and that's where you'll find us. So we're getting underway with the first game. In fact, I better just check when the first game is because there's preliminaries first. But the first game is actually 16th of March, and it's England versus the West Indies in Mumbai. So 5 Live Sports Extra then.
Fantastic, Charles. Well, thanks for your time.
I've got one last question.
Oh, go on, Dutton.
Would you recommend N-Power as an energy supplier?
Well, it's an interesting question, Dutz, but it's one that I don't think I really should go into in great detail here.
Fantastic, Charles. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
I'm going to speak soon.
No worries. Always great to talk to you. Take care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Charles.
That was the brilliant Charles Dagnall there, who loves a chat, Dutton.
He does.
He's one of the most passionate people I know in terms of the amount of stuff he talks about. It's amazing.
It's as I've said in the past, I can listen to people talk about any subject as long as they give a crap about it, and he certainly does.
He certainly does, mate. He certainly does. Well, Dutton, we've talked about some of the stupidest stories on the internet this week, and we've spoken to Charles about T20. It's time to go. So this has been Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutts. Get used to it.